today we're going to talk about one of my patients again. Unlike last time where I talked about my favorite patient I've ever had, this week we're going to do something a little different, and it's not quite as fun. As usual, following HIPAA and all that, no names and all that, everything's going to be changed. We're just going to call this patient Sarah. Won't go into any real details and all that, any identifiers. I think that covers it. This is one of those things where if you work in EMS for any length of time, eventually you will come across it. And from my experience, it's kind of glossed over as far as things you'll have to deal with. Like, you will, but no one really talking about it until after it happened. But that said, might as well just go into it. So this started off as a pretty standard patient transport. We went to a it was a rehab facility, and picked her up. The facility said that she had kind of abnormal labs, and that's about all the information we were given. She was going to the hospital for a pretty standard, just a doctor's appointment, basically. And when I get there, she didn't look great, but didn't look terrible. Talked to the nurses, and they were telling us that, she was doing all right, but they had noticed that she had started to decline a little throughout the day, but nothing really that we should worry about. So we get her loaded up into the truck. My partner starts driving, and it's a maybe 30-minute drive, maybe. And hook up to the monitor, which starts tracking her vitals and all that. And it has this feature where if it starts to detect a unusual rhythm, it'll set off an alarm, which is a great feature unless your patient has like an irregularly regular heartbeat, which for those of you not in a medical field, that's basically where your heartbeat is. It's not, like a standard bump, 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 but it does have a pattern to it. It's weird, but it's normal for you. We're maybe 10, 15 minutes-ish into this drive when the monitor starts to beep at me. And up until then, I had nothing weird was going on. Her and I were just talking. And as it started to beep, I looked up, and she's just telling me that suddenly her chest is feeling really tight. She's having difficulty breathing, and she was just starting to feel really weird. And I was like, all right, we'll figure out what's going on. Let me recheck what my monitors give me, because it does the constant monitoring, but then if you hit a button on it, it'll basically do a rescan of everything. And so I stood up, hit the button, and it started to go through its thing. And as I stood, I heard her say, hey, I really don't feel too good. And I said, well, we'll get it figured out. Just give me a second. And I looked back, and she was out. 1 second she was up and talking, and the next she was dying. And so I, of course, had this moment where everything kind of slowed down, and it was the first time I dealt with this. Like, never seen it before. Never had a patient. Well, I had one patient code on me when I was in my clinical rotations. But that was one of those where, he wasn't technically my patient, he was the nurse's patient. It was my first patient that I've ever had code, basically, who was all mine. My clinicals, I'd seen it a couple times, but this is the very first time she was my patient, and she coded. And so I told my partner that we needed to go, that she was starting to code, and luckily we were just a couple minutes away from the hospital, but I started doing CPR, hooked her up to the AED, tried to get a shockable rhythm out of her, and nothing. Get to the hospital and go back into one of the emergency rooms, and We worked on her for a little bit, and she wound up dying a short bit later. Well, they announced her dead. And that was my first encounter losing a patient that was mine. Like I said, I had been around a couple who had passed when I was doing my clinical rounds, but she was the first patient who was truly mine who died. And I gotta tell you, nothing can really prepare you for that. When I was doing my clinicals in school to be an EMT, I heard that it was something you definitely have to deal with, that you need to be ready for, and you have to be sure that you can handle it. And that was really it. And I think that's part of why I chose this story, is because I learned a lot about myself that you can't learn until you've dealt with it. I mean, but if you're thinking about going into EMS, you're probably going to encounter it. I mean, the chances of you not losing a patient are very slim. Not because you're not a good, medic or a good EMT or first responder or whatever, but just because that's the nature of the beast. I mean, I'm sure, there are some who've gone years and years and years without losing a patient, and then I'm sure there are some who've, like me, lost in their first couple of months. And that said, is that you need to be ready for that. It was rough. It was damn rough, especially because you have to keep going. Like, I had to go on to our next call and deal with that. Like, same. Had to go to that next patient and act all super happy, and like I didn't just have someone die underneath me while I was working on them. And that, it kind of fucks with your mind a little bit, I guess. But I guess the whole point of this is just, that's something you need to consider. Don't let it discourage you. Don't let the thought that someone very well could die while you're trying to save them, and that there's no way you could have seen it coming. That's one of the things I had to come to terms with, was the fact that there was nothing I could have done. No way I could have known that it was going to happen. That just sucks. But in the same aspect is that it was a very, I guess, empowering moment for me, because I realized that that's kind of why I do this, is because, yeah, I can't save them all, but I know for a fact there are those that I can, and that I'm damn well going to. And that's kind of one of those important things that you just need to keep in mind if you're going into the medical field, is that you can't save them all. And it sucks, and God, it sucks. And you want to save them all. Fuck, you want to save every last one of them. And you'll do your damnedest to save every last one of them. But when the time comes when there's nothing you could do, you need to be ready for that. And in my case, I mean, it really just steeled my resolve that I need to keep doing what I'm doing, because I couldn't save her, but I'll save the next one. I guess that's just what I'm trying to impart here, is just keep that in mind, because we didn't talk about it a lot when I was in school. I mean, who wants to talk about that? Who wants to think about the fact that you'll be able to save them all? Nobody does. We're above death. We save people. That's our freaking job. But when it does happen, you can't blame yourself. You can't. And that's just beyond important, is that you have to be able to take that moment, see that it was unavoidable, and go on and keep being the badass that you are. But I guess that's it for today. A little bit shorter than last time. But if any of you have a similar experience as an EMS or pre-hospital provider, or any kind of medical provider, feel free to, leave a little comment or a response of your own, just detailing it. And if there's any of you out there who maybe might be new to the field and you've lost a patient and it's kind of weighing on you, you just need someone to talk to, feel free to send me a message. I mean, I'm here to, I don't mind sharing my experiences on that level or helping you deal with your own, because it can kind of suck if you're the only one. And I know that my friends who are also in medicine really helped me out, letting me just sort of cuss at them afterwards, because I was really pissed after she was announced dead, because I just felt like that I should have been able to do something. I should have been. It took a good couple of days before I could finally stop blaming myself, and that's, like I said, it's normal. But yeah, I suppose that's it for the day. So, like I said, if there's anything else you guys want to hear, want to talk about, feel free to shoot me a message or whatnot, and I'll see you guys later in the week. Laters.